very, very well documented how healthy fish is, especially fatty, oily fish like this lovely mackerel here, for inflammation, just putting it into your diet. Mackerel, one of the more sustainable fish, and you know it's well known. But what do we serve with it? And one of the things that is kind of new, that isn't used that much, it's not very fashionable at the moment, is millet. Now millet is an ancient grain, grown for thousands of years. It's kind of a almost meaty kind of, you know, it's you can tell that there's a lot of texture behind it. Very, very high in magnesium, very high in vitamins, minerals, and very, very high in fiber. Great one to try and incorporate into your meals. When it's cooked, it looks a little bit like a couscous, only it's got a lot more texture to it, and it's a great carrier for flavour. Actually, I thought in hindsight when I was cooking this, I could have added a little bit of turmeric into the water I was cooking it in. It would have taken on that turmeric, which would even make the dish more anti-inflammatory, but also lovely and colourful as well. So it's just something I must think about myself in the future. What I'm going to do is just a very simple little lemon ginger dressing on this. I'm going to make this into like a little simple salad. Now to cook the millet, I just fill a pot with plenty of water, put the millet in, cooked it till it became tender. Then using a sieve, because it's a very small grain, I just rinsed it off well and ended up with my nice cooked grains. Took about 20 to 30 minutes. It does take a bit of cooking millet. But just to have a little taste of it as it's cooking, and when it's quite palatable and a little bit tender, then you know it's probably good. So to make my dressing, first of all, I've taken the zest from a lemon. I'd always say take the zest off your lemon if at all possible. That's where most of the flavour in the citruses are. And into that zest, I'm going to put the juice of a lemon. Just to make a very, very simple little dressing here. And then into that, I probably should take off my seeds. And then into that, I'm just going to very simply add some finely minced ginger, about a teaspoonful, fresh ginger. I'm putting it into the acid because that's where the ginger will kind of cook through a little bit. Give that a little bit of a mix, pinch of salt in there, and then about 40 ml of olive oil. That's the first thing you can do. You can do that well in advance as well. And now you have just a very simple little lemon, a lemon olive oil ginger dressing. Very, very simple. And then on my millet, I started with a dry millet, about 80 grams thereabouts, about a small cup of millet. Then having cooked it, it bulked up, almost doubled, close to trebled in size. And I'm going to just pop that into a bowl. And then into that, I've diced a red pepper, diced it fairly small. The seeds of half a pomegranate. I want lots of colour in here. A mango, which I just roughly diced up, just peeled. Now, the thing when you're buying mangoes is, I find that most of the supermarkets, maybe not all, they tend to sell mangoes that are more like potatoes. But the Asian, the Oriental shops, the ethnic food shops, tend to stock much better fruit, especially things like the mangoes, where they're lovely and sweet and the way mangoes should be. So, and I find mango and those kind of fruits go very well with the millet, because again, the millet is kind of almost a little bit of a dryish kind of texture to it when it's cooked. So bringing in those fruits, it brings a lot of vibrancy into it. And then what I've done here is, I've got some garden herbs, mainly mint. I love the freshness of the mint in this kind of a little kind of a salad dish. But I've also got a little bit of fennel, a little bit of oregano, and a little bit of marjoram. But again, avoid the sages, the rosemaries with this kind of dish. You want freshness. Basil, parsleys, fennels, things like that are perfect. And just very roughly chop them up. But in particular the mint, I think with this one, gives a lovely freshness and really lifts this whole little salad, because I want nice citrusy freshness in this. Now, with my mackerel, I'm actually, just want to cut my few herbs here, I'm going to be using gooseberries. Gooseberries to mackerel are like tomato and basil. They're very, very good complement to each other. These are lovely red, ripe gooseberries I have, but you could just as easily use the nice green ones, which are a bit more acidic, the less ripe ones. But basically, gooseberries, great accompaniment to all oily fish, but in particular, I find it mackerel, salmon, and so on. But a nice gooseberry sauce is hard, very, very hard to beat. So there's my salad there. Kind of a little bit like a kind of a couscous salad, only for millet as the base. Give it a little mix around it. And then my dressing that I made, pop that in. And that's a lovely, fresh, simple little salad. A little bit of salt and pepper in there. Just seasoning it to your taste. And then give it a nice little mix around and let that kind of stand. It's nice to make that a little bit in advance and let those juices kind of infuse with the millet. So you have this lovely, vibrant, rich, and extremely healthy salad, which is, you know, nutritionally it packs a hell of a punch, this one. I'm going to put that aside, and then I'm going to go on and cook my mackerel, which will only take a couple of seconds to do. So to cook my mackerel, nice little pan, good to have a lid, and I'm going to steam the mackerel here because there's my lovely mackerel, lovely and fresh, and I'm going to just lightly salt and pepper that as my pan is heating up. And then I'm going to put about a third of a cup of water into my pan. Now the reason it's steaming is I'm trying to protect those omega-3s. So I'm going to just pop my mackerel down. You can put it down to the side just for a second. As you can see, it's curling up nicely. Always a good sign in fish, if not an essential sign. And as well as that, we overlook steaming as a great technique for cooking mackerel and any kind of those fish. So what I'm going to do is just steam that away. First of all, just for a few minutes. Now, depending on your gooseberries, how ripe they are, we might add them in. My root gooseberries are a lovely ripe gooseberry, so it'll only take a second just to kind of just warm through. But they could, but if they're green gooseberries, I'd probably add them in around now. So that's been steaming, just a minimal amount of water for about 60 seconds. Now I'm going to just add in my gooseberries. And into that, I'm just going to let those gooseberries just lightly soften. I don't want to overcook them until they just start to burst a little bit with a little bit of flavour. If your pan gets a little bit dry, just add about a tablespoon of water. A little bit of, pop the lid on, and then just wait for a few minutes, not even a few minutes, about 30 seconds, just to build a little bit of heat back into that pan. And then what I'm going to do is just very simply turn off the heat, and with the lid on, I'm going to let the residual heat just kind of finish off that cookery. It's all about protecting those little, those omega-3s that are in that fish, and it's a very, very delicate fish, and it's all about keeping freshness there as well. Now, just having waited literally 60 seconds, look at that. Those gooseberries, as I open it up, have gone bright red, started to burst open. They're full of sugars, so these ones are lovely and sweet. So, and that is literally all there is to cooking this piece of fish. As you can see, I'm just going to take my mackerel, and you can see it's just flaking apart lovely. And that's it. Lovely, fresh, simple mackerel already, and nothing else to that. So I'm just going to put that aside for a second, just to show you how to plate this little one up. I'm going to take a nice little bowl, and then I'm just going to generously spoon some of my salad into it. As you can see, there's that nice, vibrant salad millet. It looks very like a couscous, only for it's a couscous is kind of a rolled durum wheat, kind of rolled into pieces. So it's more like more similar to almost a pasta, whereas this is a whole grain and a very, very nutritious one. Against those magnesiums again and things like that are very, very beneficial. So I'm going to add my salad in there. Then take one of my mackerel fillets, because I have 2 nice portions here. Place it on top. Place some of my nice gooseberries over that. And as you can see, they took no cooking at all when they're lovely ripe gooseberries like this. I'm just going to finish that with just a little drizzle, just to liven the whole thing up a little bit. Of a good olive oil now at this stage. It's a nice Kalamata olive oil. And then I'm just going to put a couple of little sprigs of fresh fennel around it. You don't have to do it, it's just decorative. And whatever herbs you have really will do fine, but it's just I have a nice piece of fennel and I think it particularly suits this dish. And that little bit of anise hits are, you know, really nice with this as well. And that's it. Our little mackerel with millet salad.